This is Jess with Local Music Somewhere, and you're listening to rBeatz Radio.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. All right, Local Music Somewhere, James Dessey, we have you on today. Let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about yourself. Go ahead and introduce yourself here. We know you're a musician, so take it away.
Sure. So again, my name is James Dessey. I'm the vocalist for the band that I perform with. We primarily play in the Charlotte and Lake Norman area. And as John stated, we're going to be making our debut show at the Amp in Ballantyne, which is a new venue. It is huge, it is beautiful, and we are super excited to start playing there.
That's so cool. So what kind of music is it that you guys are doing?
So we market ourselves as the ultimate party music band. We are a cover band, but we play stuff from essentially every decade. We don't limit ourselves to just the 80s or just one band like a lot of tribute bands will do. We play the most high energy party music that we can from every genre and from every artist, and we kind of put it all together with a programmed light show, and we have visuals, and we just try to create a really awesome party experience for every show that we play.
That's pretty great. That sounds like, you could get booked in a lot of places doing that type of gig. So do you guys have like a crowd favorite or like a very favorite you guys like to play of that set?
So funnily enough, even though we were all prior metal musicians, I think that's all of our background for all the individuals in the band. Our most popular song is probably a Backstreet Boys song.
Yes!
So we'll do that. And we've also got a little Genuine. If you guys have ever seen the movie Magic Mike, we play Pony, and that is probably the other really popular one that we do. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. So, okay. So Backstreet Boys, I love it. That's really great. So are you singing lead on that song?
Yeah, so I am the only vocalist in the band, and the way that we manage that is we will actually run backing tracks where we will record in our studio myself singing all the individual harmonies. So we've still got the 5-part, Backstreet Boy harmony going on, but it's me doing all the parts, and then I'll sing the main line live. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you guys are playing to a click then through the whole set.
100%.
With that.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like I don't see that every day. That's a lot of stacked vocals there. That's pretty great. I'm going to have to see that live. Do you guys have any videos out that we could check out?
Yeah, absolutely. So we post a lot of our performances on our Facebook page and on our Instagram page. We've got a live promo video that we put together that shows a lot of highlights from some of our bigger shows at some of the bigger venues that we've played. And then we're always sharing the fan videos. We love getting tagged by people when they take pictures, when they take videos. So we put up as much content as we can from all the shows. Yeah.
That's great. So James, tell me, how did you get into the musical world? I know I read that you were a vocal major, but I'm sure it started before that. So take us through kind of the beginnings of this.
Sure. So originally I grew up in the Bronx, and I went to Catholic school when I was very young. And part of doing that is you have to actually attend church. And the way that I was able to do that was by singing in the choir from a very young age. Kind of kept that going through elementary school, picked up a guitar once I got to be old enough to actually physically carry one. And then started just teaching myself, did all the typical high school stuff, did the talent show, played at friends' parties and everything. And then turned that into being a vocal major in college for a while, and just started loving performing, started loving being live in front of crowds. And turns out you can actually kind of make a decent living doing that. So that's kind of been my focus is doing the live performance. And while it's a cover project now, we do intend to parlay that into doing original music. We're kind of building up the fan base through, doing this cover band project. And then once we get to a large enough following, we're going to start releasing some of our original music to that audience.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty sound strategy. I mean, covers can get you into these places, start curating your audience, and then you sneak in these originals. So when you're talking about the original material, I did read a couple of your influences. So tell me more about the style of what you're going to be going for and how that relates to maybe your inspirations, or go from there.
Sure. So I don't have quite as heavy a background as the other guys in the band. They were touring with a band called Exiles, and it's hard to describe some of this metal stuff because there's so many subgenres. But I think they would describe themselves as hard style, like hardcore metal. Essentially, like there was no actual singing. The vocalist was just doing the screams the whole time, which is cool. But that's not really my personal style. I'm more of a traditional vocalist. So we're going to be going more in the vein of, to relate it to modern artists, I would say somebody like I Prevail or Beartooth are two big influences for me. If anybody wants to go check them out, that would give you a good idea of what we're going to be doing with the new material. And then as far as influences coming into those styles, I was huge into classic rock, but with the more modern metal, I was a huge Breaking Benjamin fan. Bands like Seven Dust, Incubus, those guys. Anything where the vocals were really featured was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I love Brandon Boyd and Incubus. I feel like I've crowd surfed at some point to one of these bands that we're talking about at Warped Tour or something. But that's great. So let's talk about actually gigging. So you're very experienced. You've been gigging on this little piece 2007 to 2010 up and down the East Coast. So tell me more about that whole experience and what that is for you.
Sure. So I had served in the Navy right up until 2007. And as soon as I got out, I knew that I wanted to start performing again. And I had linked up with a band called Green Machine up in Long Island, New York. And they were kind of already established. So we were playing venues in Manhattan. We were playing in Boston. We were playing in Connecticut, also Long Island, obviously. Yeah. So it was a really active scene at the time as well. And I got to play in front of some huge crowds playing in that area. Actually got to meet a couple of people. We had at one point, I don't know if you guys remember back when VH1 was doing the show with Bret Michaels called Rock of Love.
We're actually binging that show right now. That is hilarious.
Good timing. Good timing. So Bret was, he was kind of having obviously he was already famous, but he was having a resurgence doing the show and kind of getting back into the mainstream. And somebody in the band knew him, and he actually came out and hung out and watched one of our shows. I remember him having that huge bodyguard that he had on the show was with him as well. And then he got up and sang a song at one point, and there's a video of it somewhere on YouTube. Again, this was back before iPhones and everything, but there's definitely a video of it on there. I think I've looked it up before. So that was a pretty cool experience. I got to have just being in the right place, right time. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's so strange. Talk about a coincidence. I mean, such a random thing to go back and watch, and you're bringing it up right now. Oh, wow. Okay. So, all right. That's a lot of gigging, and that's a lot of places. That's a lot of experience. So do you have like a dream venue or like a favorite venue, like anything that just like really stood out to you through that?
The best venue I think we played at the time, I don't even think it's open anymore, but there was this place called the Crazy Donkey on Long Island. And if anybody listening, if you had lived there during that time, you probably know about it. It was an indoor venue, but it held between 3,000 and 4,000 people. And when you could really pack that out, it was insane to see that many people out in the audience. And again, since you're doing covers, everybody knows all the words to every song. So you've constantly got this wall of thousands of people just singing along to every song with you. It's kind of a rush. I think the only thing I could equate it to would be like if you were a professional wrestler and you're coming out to your intro music and like everybody's
Yeah.
singing your song. That's kind of
Like hyping. Yeah. That is insane. That's a huge crowd. I mean, you know, do you feel that when you're on stage, you're pretty confident within the covers, or do you feel like, because I do talk about this with some of the musicians on the show on how it's different to play covers versus originals. Do you kind of notice a difference, you know, within yourself when you're maybe doing that, or is it all kind of the same?
Yeah, there's definitely some differences with the originals. I think you probably have a little more confidence because you wrote the song start to finish, and you've been working with, you know, those songs for so long that they're ingrained in your brain. Whereas with the covers, sometimes you might learn a song like a week or two before you go out and perform it. And in some situations, it may be a song you've never heard before. It's unlikely because you're doing popular songs. But having that short turnaround time and then to go and perform it, it does get in your head a little bit every once in a while where you think you're going to forget the lyric, and then magically it pops right into your head the second before you're supposed to sing the line. So the nerves can get to you occasionally, but I tend to over prepare and make sure that I'm really, really locked in on these songs before we perform them.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you feel like is like the biggest challenge with this whole thing? Because, you know, you say you can make, you know, an income doing this, but, you know, it's kind of widely known that it's not exactly easy, you know. We're talking about an art form. So can you maybe talk about some of the challenges that you've had and how you've kind of gotten past that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest challenge is when you first start out, because with the cover band industry, you have to be able to sell to the venue owners that you are actually going to be worth hiring. You know, they can have bands come in, and sometimes, you know, the amount that they're paying the band, they're not really getting the return on their investment if they're not seeing more people come in and spend money, you know, at their establishment. So initially, you kind of have to not make a lot of money. You can't really charge a lot. Because you have to build your name up in the area. You've got to play places a couple of times for people to get familiar with you and then want to come back and see you. And you're also competing with a lot of other different bands. So you also have to find a way to stand out and make what you're doing unique. And I think that's how we landed on the show that we have. We started seeing, okay, there's already a lot of bands doing this. There's already a lot of bands doing that. What can we do that nobody else is doing, but is still going to have enough, you know, mainstream appeal that we're going to get these big crowds and we're going to get invited to play at these bigger venues. And that's definitely the biggest challenge is the getting started and then building up to the point where people are actually reaching out to you instead of you reaching out to them to book these shows.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the strategy is working for you. So I appreciate, you know, your input on that. We were talking about Sweet Leaf, the band, and then you guys are going to be playing your debut. So can you tell us more about like what's to come with you? Like what's down the road here?
Sure. So that amphitheater show is October 26th. And then we're playing a couple of places in Lake Norman that are pretty big. One of them is called Boatyard. And this venue is pretty unique because while they do have local artists play there a lot, they also fly in a lot of national acts. And we are going to be playing. We actually already played with this band, but they liked us so much they want us back. Trey Pierce and the T-Stones. Trey Pierce is actually a 4-time Grammy Award winner. He's a bass player who's been featured on a lot of albums that went to, or a lot of songs, I should say, that were #1 hits. So we're going to be playing with them again at Boatyard for Thanksgiving. And then another group that we had played with there. This is actually a fun story. So if you guys are familiar with the bands Lifehouse or Savage Garden from the late 90s, a lot of those former members started a new super group called Radio XX, and we actually got to play with them at Boatyard as well. So that was a really fun experience. So that venue, in and of itself, we're excited to keep playing there, and we're eventually going to be headlining our own shows there, starting in February of next year, I believe.
Wow. I can't believe that. So, okay, Radio XX is made up of Savage Garden and you said Lifehouse members?
Yes, the bass player from Lifehouse, the guitar player from Savage Garden, and then their lead vocalist is actually a guy who was on a reality music show called Rockstar Supernova.
Oh, wow.
So he was an excellent vocalist, and then I think they kind of switch out drummers, which sorry drummers, but that kind of is kind of a typical thing when these bands go on tour. They kind of switch out here and there.
Right.
But yeah, they're all professionals, awesome guys, and it was a really cool experience to meet them and play with them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. That's great. So we've got new things on the horizon for you. Now, can you maybe give us, we have a lot of, independent musicians that are listening for tips and advice on this show. So, is there a great piece of advice you've ever received or anything that you feel like is worth kind of passing on to our listeners today?
Yeah. So with the way that the music industry has been evolving, one thing I was told by a manager of a touring band, when we asked them the same question is, try to be as self-reliant as you can, because they want you to be prepared for everything. And I think what they mean by that is the touring bands who are having a lot of success, even though they all play their own individual instruments, they have their own individual roles. A lot of these guys are extremely knowledgeable about audio engineering, recording technology, and the software. And they could pretty much individually by themselves record an entire album without the rest of the band. Not that they would want to do that, but it's kind of like in case, what if everybody in the band gets sick and you're the last man standing and you've got to finish this album, in the last month? Like, you've got to be able to lay down every instrumental part, do vocals, edit, mix, and then, do a mastering of everything. So I think it's really beneficial to not only focus on your craft as a musician, but dive into the technology, like explore with the software, with the programs. It's fun to do. And it's also going to give you a lot of flexibility in that industry.
Yeah. I mean, and we talk about this a lot. We have to wear so many hats as a musician and doing so many different jobs. But I totally agree, getting into the technology side, not every songwriter has enough patience for all of that, but especially pulling up synth patches or things like that. I mean, that cooks up totally great songs that, you can't really get with just the same acoustic guitar or piano, So I totally agree. Being self-reliant, that's huge. So James, thank you so much for coming onto the show today. I really enjoyed talking to you. I'm sure everybody's going to follow what you're doing and check out the show at you said the Amp in Valentine, yes. October 26th. All right. That sounds great. All right. Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to say to our listeners today?
Just thanks for having me. This was super fun. And maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next round.
Search for more local music somewhere on rBeatz.com and follow our social media for highlighted artists as we travel with #LocalMusicSomewhere.